let's talk about our next project that we have, and that's actually the chairs. If you're like me, I get kind of stressed out because when we've got the table in the kitchen, we've got a table in the dining room, and I go around in my mind and I think, okay, so people can sit, I can get 3 people on the sofa, I can get 3 people in these chairs, I can pull up these chairs. So I'm all the time thinking about seating. What is so great about the holidays is you want to be able to have as many people to come over as possible. Go on Craigslist, go on Let Go on these sites where the porch pickups in your neighborhood sites, and you can get all kinds of chairs. Don't worry about the fact that you're thinking that they all need to match. They don't have to. What's so great is I love these little mismatched chairs that can have a great personality. Now, I was fortunate enough, we went to like a junk store here in Memphis, and I was able to find 4 chairs for $35. So you think about, you could literally go and buy some, paint them, have it match your entire room and add a lot of character for literally under $50. So here's this sweet little ladder back chair. It's kind of sad in a way. The finish was terrible on it. You could tell that it had really had a hard life, but it was time for it to have a new story to tell. So what I want to show you, painting chairs are going to be a little bit different than painting a regular piece of furniture. The first thing I did when I was cleaning those chairs is I used my clean slate all over. I just saturated a lint-free rag and I cleaned them very well. The great thing about it is with a clean slate, it flashes off, so that way you don't have to come back with water, you don't have to rinse anything off. Now, I want to show you how you need to be painting spindles. A lot of times on the chairs, we didn't have spindles on the ladder backs, but they're small little areas, a lot of times 2 or 2.5 inches, and you might have a tendency to get a little bit too much paint on it. You might struggle with drips just a little bit more. So you do have an option if you want to work with an airless sprayer. It's a very easy thing to use. Now you're like, what is an airless sprayer? What is she talking about? Is that one of those big paint rigs? No, they're small little containers of paint that they have a gun to them that you can plug into the wall and it will spray the paint. I love spraying the one-step paint. One thing that you want to make sure that you do, though, if you decide to spray it, is you need to make sure that you have much more paint. Now, as a rule, one of these pots, these sample pots, will cover about 45 to 50 square feet. If you're working with a quart, you're looking at about 135 square feet coverage. But if you spray it, you want to make sure that you allow about 20% more paint. It's going to use up more paint, but you're going to save time when you're spraying. But the other thing is, I do enjoy just painting. I love getting a paintbrush. I love being able to turn some music on and just enjoy the process. The great thing is, I want you to put down a drop cloth if you're going to be painting in your kitchen. Make sure that it's protected, but there's no smell. There's no VOCs. Remember, it's certifiable green, so it's going to be very easy to use. So with my chairs, I've already gone on and cleaned them, and I'm going to take one of my Amy Howard at Home nylon brushes. Now you'll notice it's smaller. I would really like for you to work with one of these brushes because they're tapered. It's easier to use than a chip brush when you're actually using the one-step paint. Make sure that you shake this up very, very well. Now a lot of times you may notice that the chalk-based paint will have a tendency to maybe separate from the water. Part of that is because it was very important to me that it was certifiable green and it was natural. And because when we talked about this being a chalk-based paint, it does have chalk in it. So that's a very heavy, dense product that sometimes will settle to the bottom. So we want to make sure that we shake it very well and get it stirred up also. So I'm just going to take my stir stick here, and I want to make sure that I go down into the paint itself and make sure that it's all stirred up. That way I'm ready to go. I adore this color. This is called Brooks Gray. It's actually, it's much more of a blue, green, gray color, but it's named after one of my retailer's children. And so this was a color that she had used a lot, and we love it. It looks great if you want to seal it and come back with a gloss. You can wax it. I'm also going to show you how to be able to ceruse it. So let's talk about base coating for one moment. Now watch how I dip my brush in. See how I'm offloading it? Please make sure that you don't just dip your brush in and then drag it over to your project. You're going to have a big mess on your hands. Make sure you offload it. Think about your painting your nails, how you're going to offload that paint from that brush and then come onto your piece. Now, you see how it's going to be a little bit more difficult, that you're going to have to make sure that you're overlapping. And I am coming back and I'm applying more paint than normal if I'm working on a large chest of drawers. I'm not dipping my brush into the paint nearly as much as if I'm working on spindles, but you want to make sure that you pat it up in there in that area where that's kind of close and then brush over it. I'm all the time overlapping as well because I want to make sure that I don't have any drips. The coverage on this color is absolutely amazing. So just enjoy the process. Like I said, I do. I love painting and having music on, and I love seeing the transformation almost instantly. So we're going to allow this to dry about 15 or 20 minutes. If you're working inside and it's cold outside, you've probably got the heat on, so you won't have any problem with it coming to tack and drying. And then I would like for you to put a second coat on. After 2 coats, you should be fine. Now, if you're working with really dark woods and you're putting lighter colors on, you might have to do a 3rd coat, but as a rule, 2 coats is just fine. So after it's dry, you're gonna have this beautiful matte chalky finish. That's part of the reason why I love the one-step paint so much. I love the depth that this has. I love how it feels. It's very soft. But if you're working with kitchen chairs, if this is going to be using a chair that you're going to be using all the time, every day, you may want to wax it. And that's only for cleanability. Some people will say, do I have to wax? No, you do not have to wax it. You can come back and clean your chairs with like Windex. You can clean them with soap and water. And that's one of the things that makes our paint so great, is the fact that you don't have to worry about it coming off. I had a young girl that had just had a baby. She painted all of her furniture in her nursery with another paint. When she went to clean it, she said all the paint came off on her rag. She did not know that she had to seal it. But with the Amy Howard at Home one-step paint, you do not have to seal it, so don't worry about that. So I could leave it like this, but I also have a couple of options. So I want to be able to show you 3 different waxing options, and they're kind of fun. So the first one is, of course, we've talked about this on our other live events. If this is your first time to tuning in to these great live events, I would love for you to go back into the archived acehardware.com, and you can go back in the live events that we've had and watch them, and you can have the materials there, that you can have the step-by-steps that you can print off and do those projects yourself. So one of the first things I want to be able to show you is actually working with the light antique wax. So I have several different options for wax. This is more of a disc form. And if you're going to be doing antiquing and working with dark wax, you need to always start with the light antique wax. On these chairs, I'm just going to use one wax. I'm not going to be antiquing them with the dark wax. So you have a couple of options. So if I'm going to be using this, I want to make sure that I use a chip brush now. And I'm going to load it up. See how I'm kind of pressing it into that wax? I want to make sure that this brush gets nice and saturated. Then you want to make sure that you come back and offload. I always tell my students, don't ever go directly from here onto your piece. I want you to offload. That way you've got more control over it. The other thing that it does is it allows the wax to get all over the bristles. It's evenly distributed, and then you can come back and offload it, so that way you're not putting too much wax on. Here's the other thing that's important. You want to make sure that you have really good coverage. You want 100% coverage of the light antique wax, but I don't want it too saturated. It's going to take longer for it to dry and longer for it to cure. If we put on enough so it's all over the piece, we can look for dry time to be about 15 minutes. So I'm going to come back on top of this. It looks like I need to put just a little bit more on my brush, so I'm going to load it up again. I'm going to offload it. So you see how I can pounce my brush down in the crevices like this to make sure I get wax. And then feather it out. So that way I have the wax on. Train your hand. I love when I'm working on it, I'll always come back and touch it. Now, I'm kind of odd in the fact that I love closing my eyes and feeling of it. It makes the sensory of my hands show up more, and I can see that it's kind of greasy and it's moving around. So I want to make sure that when I come back to touch it, to make sure that it's nice and dry, that it's not greasy anymore. And I'm going to come back and buff that with a lint-free rag. Now the next product I want to be able to show you, this is fairly new. It's the Vintage Wood Mercantile Mind Your Own Beeswax. So I love just taking little sayings, especially Southern sayings, because I'm from Memphis. But I would hear people say, I'm doing my kitchen cabinets. I really don't want to use the disc and a brush. Is there another option? Well, this is going to be great for you because it's so easy to be able to use. I can just squirt it out onto a lint-free rag. And let's say on my chairs that I didn't want to brush it on, I can just squeeze this beeswax directly onto my rag. And I'm just going to lather it up like this. I can do it with a brush if I'd like, but a lot of people just like working with a rag. You can obviously see exactly where that's gone. The same way, I want you to allow this to dry about 10, maybe 15 minutes, and then you can come back and buff it. Look at the incredible sheen. Now remember, on my chair, it was a very dull kind of matte finish. That's what we love about chalk-based paint. But look at the sheen on this. So if you want to be able to have a sheen like this on your kitchen cabinets, you can do that. You can also do this on a chest of drawers. But with the natural Mind Your Own beeswax, it's going to give you an incredible beeswax finish. This is protected. You do not have to come back and ever add any more wax to this. You can just buff it. Now, if you're working on a chest of drawers, let's say maybe you've got a chest in your entry hall that everybody comes in, they go, that's their pass through, they're throwing their keys on it, they're throwing their purses and things on it. If you want, maybe every 4 or 5 months, if you want to come and just put a nice protective coat of the Mind Your Own beeswax on top of it, I would do that. It's not going to build up into a surface. A lot of people will say, well, I use Indust and things like that. I'm very careful about using cleaning products on wood pieces of furniture. I like using natural beeswax. You may even have an antique piece that's looking really like it needs food, it needs water. This is great for that as well. It's great for stained finishes as well as painted finishes. So here's another process that I want to be able to show you. We have a lot of options when we're working with our chairs as far as waxes, and it can totally change it. The next one is Serusing. Now, Serusing is a new term. It's all over the internet. You're going to see everything from Pinterest to Instagram, and you may not know that it's Serusing, but it's C-E-R-U-S-I-N-G, Serusing or Seruse. It's been around since Edwardian days. And I want to show you an image here that's very interesting. This woman would have lived in the 1500s, and she had a very white, pasty face, and that look of having a very, a lot of times the royalty and the court would have this white face, and that was a combination of a paste that they actually made with mercury in it. It's scary to think about it, but that's part of the reason why their eyebrows would fall out and their hair would fall out. It was because they were putting this mercury paste all over their faces, their foreheads, and their chest. And so that look, that pasty white look, transferred over onto furniture. So they called it Serusing on the furniture. Can we show that image one more time that we just had? There is a chest that I did on top of oak that I used the Serusing wax on top of, and the grain in oak that you have allows it to show up. A lot of times people call it liming, sometimes we call it Serusing, but it's a beautiful finish that you can get just by applying the wax on it. Now, I'm going to take this spindle that I'm showing you how to be able to work with the chairs, and I'm going to show you how you can use the Serusing wax on it. So basically just squirt a little bit of this out onto your cardboard. I've got my lint-free rag. I'm going to load some of this up with my chip brush. Now here's my spindle, now watch. I don't have to apply a whole lot, it goes on very, very easily. I also have lining wax that comes in a tin that you can do the same thing. This is just in a liquid form. It works just a little bit faster. But see how it gives me this beautiful white cerused look. Now, I'm going to allow this to dry about 15 or 20 minutes. And then it's going to give me this beautiful white look. If we can get a close-up, I want you to be able to see this. Now, I did come back and buff it. So look at the sheen. Can you see that? Look at that beautiful sheen. Look at the detailing, how that white goes down into the crevices of that. So that's an option to be able to do on my entire chair. Now the other thing is, if you get on too much of the liming wax or the Serusing wax, just come back with a little 4/0 steel wool and buff it up. Don't worry about it. If you put too much on and you get upset and you're like, I want to start over again, guess what? Just take the clean slate, wipe it off, and start with a fresh, clean slate. All right, so let's show you the after picture of my chairs that we did for my holiday room. So here's the after chair of that sweet little ladder back. Now, remember this is Brooks Gray, so if you loved this color, as I do, you'll be able to paint your chairs the same way. You know, this Brooks Gray color would also be fantastic as a chalkboard wall. But look at these sweet chairs with our table and our holiday decor. I love it. It's fabulous. It's just the perfect accent with our gray wall and with our white table. Thank you for being a part. Until next time, happy holidays.